A hybrid system, for us, we were first manufacturer to launch this into the UK market. Works particularly well when it's all our equipment, because we have this system called eBus, which is a communication system to all parts of the system. Instead of talking about just heat generators now, we talk about systems. One of the things I just wanted to point out on this system, we also have a passive flue gas unit on the top to improve the hot water performance, because this is a combi boiler.
Okay.
So whereas heat loss, big heat losses are quite evident in producing hot water on any type of generator, this system, we improve that system as well. But particularly where the hybrid sits on its own is if you've got old technology in your own home, for example, oil boilers, maybe an LPG boiler, or you're on all electric, a hybrid system is good for you if your home can't be got to a standard of efficiency to say, I can get rid of that technology and put a heat pump in on its own. So it's very good for working with dual fuels, if you like.
Right, okay, so it's flexible.
Very flexible indeed.
Just to say, when we do the close-up work, you'll be able to see it up on the screens up there, because Helen will get it on the camera. Look, it looks very different to a standard heat pump installation. What are the basic differences?
The basic differences are you'll generally see a second heat generator, in our case a boiler. Now, they'll say this could be an oil boiler in the garden, it could be just an all-electric site, but it's generally using a dual fuel. And the problem with heat pumps using dual fuel, traditionally they've used electricity to give you the backup of temperature you might need. And electricity, we know, is 3 times more costly than gas.
Yeah.
It should be avoided really, or not designed to use electricity. What we can do with gas or oil, particularly LPG, gas and oil, it's an expensive product. If we can limit its use, we can make the system very, very efficient. On average, on some of the installations I've seen, it can be up to roughly a tank, that's an 800-litre tank less per year of oil, which, if you look in cost terms,
that's quite a lot.
Quite a saving.
Now, there's no cylinder?
No cylinder with this, but we can operate it with a cylinder.
Right, okay.
We're just using a combi. It's a space saver for us.
Yeah.
But if I had a cylinder with this, all I would say is, we can use the heat pump to give us some heat in the cylinder, but it can never get you to 60 degrees, which you need on a daily basis for your Legionella protection. So what we would do is we would put an S-plan in this to tee off from the boiler side to heat the cylinder on its own, because it's natural gas particularly is the cheapest way to heat a volume of water. But if you was on all electric, we can set the heat pump to give us some heat during your cheaper times, and then use the electric to back up from, say, 40 degrees to 60 degrees on a daily basis.
Now, insulation, what sort of level of insulation is sufficient, would you say?
It's a bit right up in the air and see what you get come down, but the rule of thumb I use initially is have a look yourself. You can see if you've got double glazing. If you've got solid walls, it does bring some issues in play in terms of trying to get the walls insulated. But if you've got cavities, if you've got cavity insulation, that's a good sign. And generally I'll say if you can put double in there, you're going to halve your heat losses. It's generally a rule of thumb that, but doing, as you're going to show later, an EPC on the property will be the only sure way of saying what you need to do with the insulation.
Now, look, the chances are that I'm going to have already a heating system in place. Can I leave that in place? And what are the sort of plumbing similarities?
In certainly plumbing similarities, it's exactly the same. Worst case is it's bigger pipe work, because for a mono system that's all full of glycol, you're probably going to need to run bigger pipe work, because you've got low temperature going through a system. You need more volume through that system to give you the same output of heat. With the hybrid system we have here, because it gives us a system cut from the glycol circuit, so from this side of the unit out to the heat pump, we would have glycol filled, which we would have 28mm pipe work installed. This side of the plate, and there's a flow and return here from the boiler, we're running in more traditional 22. So in that case, most of the internal system, as long as it's clean enough or clean sufficiently, can be left in place and just updated as required.
And are there regulations about where you can site the system and so on?
Certainly are. I mean, again, common sense would play a big part.
Yeah.
But they have compressors in, they've got fans in. They do create not a high level of noise by any stretch, but it's a level of noise nevertheless. And in the middle of the night, if it's very quiet. So there is a process called MIC 020. We have a tool that you can use. It basically puts some measurements in, how many flat surfaces you've got, distance to a neighbour's living area,
Right.
things like a dining room or a living room,
Yep.
and it will tell you whether you can fit that under permitted development. And basically, it's about 40 decibels is the tipping point. Doesn't mean you can't fit one, it means you have to go to full planning. But in any case, notify the planning office, because they all take different slants on some of the regulations about, you know, and they all say, oh, we don't do it that way, we require a lower sound emittance.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Just talk us through a little bit of what we've got here then. would
Okay,
you?
so
We'll
as
see
I've-
close-ups on the screen. So.
As I've already alluded to, this plate-to-plate is giving us a cut to the system so that we can protect the outdoor unit with glycol, which is a requirement for heat pumps, and this side, the right side of the unit, is really a standard heating system with water and inhibitor in it. We have fill points for the glycol circuit. There'll be fill points for the heating circuit. In our case, we've also got a filling loop in the boiler, so we don't need to use all this in here. We have a pump for the heating circuit. There's a pump in the outdoor unit for the glycol circuit. The isolation valves you see on here as well, also to adjust the flow rate through the system, because getting all this in, getting it plumbed in is pretty straightforward. The big key is the control unit, where we set it up to the system.
And how easy is that control unit?
This is one of the best. I mean, okay,
You're bound to say this,
it's very
obviously.
easy, but one of the things I do like on it is the commissioning screen. It's the first screen you see, and it talks you through everything.
So
and
it does need commissioning?
It does need commissioning.
Right, okay.
And this is where you're going to deliver what you've promised. Because you've designed the system to do a certain thing, this is going to either make it or break it. But it talks you through, there's 7 lines come up, and you just start at 1 and finish at 7. And if you put all the information, it'll even tell you where to wire all your individual components.
You've got the magnificent 7 almost.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Absolutely. And when you've finished it, it will do a self-test. And the self-test will confirm that you've wired everything correctly. Certainly from an E-bus status.
And presumably it will highlight anything that you haven't.
Absolutely. So an anomaly's been detected. It'll tell you where that anomaly lies,
Right.
and you can just check that circuit. It might be a
So it's an
misplaced-
intelligent system,
yes,
so to speak.
Yeah, fully intelligent. From a service point of view, it has a fault screen that you can access on a yearly basis if there's been, unfortunately, a fault. It'll give you the date, the time, and an explanation of what that fault is,
Right.
whether it lies in the refrigeration circuit or the heating circuit.
You mentioned service. How often do you need to do it? So is it an annual basis?
Yeah, annual just works, David, because if you've, like us, we've got a boiler here, we've had to register the boiler with Gas Safe.
Yeah.
There's also an obligatory under warranty conditions, particularly where they're extended for 7 years or 10 years even,
Right.
in some cases. So you need to have an annual service on that. It makes sense. Just like our chaps with the solar circuits, we need to check that glycol circuit. We use refractometers, pH levels.
And metering? Does it require metering?
Certainly, a hybrid system definitely needs metering. Because we've got 2 heat sources, and particularly because the second source is a fossil fuel, the heat meter is put on in between the heat pump and your auxiliary system. The meter itself is placed on the flow side of the circuit. It has its own sensor inside, and also you have to put a sensor on the return. And this is calculating the flow through the system, the heat out, the heat back. It calculates what you've produced, and that's what your RHA payment will be based on.
Right, okay, so that relates
Yeah.
straight away to the
Absolutely.
RHI payment.
Incidentally, just for the future, these are actually smart meter ready.
Okay.
So if we do go smart metering for heat pumps in the UK, which I'm sure we will at some stage, these are ready.
Right,
to
now,
take that.
clearly you need to be trained to install these. I know that Easy MCS is a training
Yes.
scheme that Adam, I think, is somewhere on the stand. He's over there, just at the back there. If you want to get training, there's a special offer going on during the duration of this show. Adam from Easy MCS will take your details and we'll be able to talk to you about training for installation. The other thing also, my colleagues around the stand in the blue ties, rather fetching blue ties, it has to be said, and the scarves, they will scan your passes and send you information on not only this, but anything else that you may see and be interested in further information. Anything else? What for you is the unique selling point of this, as far as you're concerned?
Unique selling point for me, in Pride first, we were the first to bring this system to market in the UK.
Right.
And we've developed it since then to work with other boilers, third-party boilers, oil, LPG, very old boilers, or totally smart systems. But it's got to be this control unit.